Another possibility is to legislate. This is a campaign that the Daily Telegraph, a conservative newspaper in London, has launched a couple of years ago to establish, just like they have Board of Censors, or they have Ofcom now, which is a quasi-governmental body designed to make sure that the like TV and movies and streaming content is fit for the public and to protect children and so on. They want to have a similar thing for social media, and they launched a campaign to say they have a duty of care. We want to have a governmental body that will see what's happening with these various different social media apps. They should be policed. Another possibility is to say, well, let's deal with some of the symptoms. And in Britain, they appointed a minister for loneliness to deal with the effects of the internet. So that's another option. You can try and legislate by making things illegal, or legislate so that you have some kind of checks and balances to try and deal with some of the fallout of new technology. You can teach. Eton, recognizing the fact that empathy is in short supply in the age of social media, has started teaching it. They started by teaching young British males to say thank you. I think most of my friends and family would thank them for that. They just say it's about 30 years too late. Research. This is one that I would be much more keen on, simply because of what I said earlier. There is very little research that is not just based on very broad generalizations and broad correlations. There are very few experimental studies, and there are very few studies of causality. These are two examples, both from this year, 2019. It's taken us a while. But there's one group that has studied, instead of relying on self-reports of internet users and social media users, they actually had people keep journals each day of their use and what was happening. So that's actually much more rigorous type of ongoing study. And then there's another study, this came out, this is so recent that I was tweeted it only last week prior to a talk I was giving somewhere else. And this is the first study that anyone has ever seen that actually shows causality. And it has shown that among heavy smartphone users, symptoms of ADHD seem to be caused by overuse of smartphones among children of early teens. So this has just come out in Child Development, doesn't yet have page numbers, it's only been published online. So we're only now beginning to see studies that are actually looking at causality. So there's a lot more research to be done. And there's also, most of the data that we've been looking at is based on one country, the United States of America. Things are quite different elsewhere. The levels are different. However, when you go and look at cross-cultural studies, and there's no one I trust more on this kind of stuff than Patricia Wingfield at UCLA, who is probably one of the mothers of cross-cultural psychology. And when I got to the end of her article, I was shocked. She said, yes, indeed, the rates are different in different countries, but the trends are identical. So we need more of these kinds of studies also. But I would also say we need to really go back to basics and think about those categories of identity that those people like James and Erickson were studying. We need to understand what are the effects on the ways in which people deal with in and out group behavior. What are the ways in which they do or do not have a moratorium or foreclose, all these kinds of ideas that take us way back into the psychology of identity. There's a huge body of research that could be taking place. No one is yet doing it. So this is my gauntlet to you guys. Get studying, because we really need to understand that. It's like this stuff is happening around us and we don't really have a grasp on it yet. So don't worry as much as roll up your sleeves and get to work. But the final thing, which I think is even more important than this, and on this I will end. I don't know if anyone recognizes this. I didn't know what she looked like, but I knew she was famous. Mae West, this is probably apocryphal. It's probably apocryphal. Is famous for saying many things. One of the things she said, which is one of my favorites, is if something's worth doing, it's worth doing slowly. Very slowly. Now, I think our issue is less to do with limiting our use of the internet and less to do with legislating against internet use. It's much more about being very clear and very consistent and very hardworking about what it is that we're replacing with all of these hours online. what is so important to us that we want to slow down, behave differently, be in communities that foster activities of this other kind, build families and homes and institutions where it's worth slowing down, where there's something worth slowing down for. And rather than jump on this bandwagon of moral panic, we should do what schools of education have been supposed to be doing all this time, which is to identify what are those deep, profound cultural values that is our responsibility to pass on to the next generation, and how are we going to make them available to them. And the problem starts right here. It's us using our phones at the dinner table, and us never stopping to do what's important. So my invitation to us would be, let's take some time out, away from our phones, and think about what is worth